Okay, let's talk about the weird Daredevil books. Frank Miller finished one of his most iconic stories, Daredevil Born Again, in 1985, after which Miller moved his Daredevil work into graphic novels / miniseries, because in comics, what even is the difference? The first two released only a year after Born Again in 1986, both illustrated by Bill Sienkiewicz, Daredevil Love and War, and Elektra Assassin. After those two books, which can only be described as super weird, Miller would return to Daredevil 4 years later in 1990 with a new miniseries, Elektra Lives Again, and then 3 years later, after that, he released his final Daredevil work, The Man Without Fear, a retelling of Daredevil's origin story. These books are by nature far more experimental and dark than your usual Daredevil stories, and they go out of their way to push not just Daredevil, but the entire comic book medium forwards in ways no one had ever done before. I read through all these books, and now I want to ramble about them, share my thoughts, and give my high school level analysis on them one by one, because I guess I just love my voice that much. The first graphic novel Miller released, Love and War. A perfect place to start, as it is weird, but not quite completely and utterly insane. That comes later. Love and War is about Kingpin's wife, Vanessa, recovering from her sickly state that she was put into during Miller's first Daredevil run. Love and War is led by about 3 or 4 point of view characters. We follow Kingpin, who's funding her recovery, and we get a much deeper insight into who Kingpin is on the inside. There's a doctor who can help Kingpin, so Kingpin sends his henchman, Victor, to kidnap the doctor's wife as leverage, help Vanessa or your wife gets it kind of situation. Daredevil's like, not cool, and he works to save the doctor and his wife and stop Kingpin's plans. Kingpin's love is very possessive here. He doesn't just love her, he needs her. He needs her entirely for himself. He's willing to harm anyone to get what he wants, including other people's wives, which I'm not sure if hypocrite is the correct word, but it's slimy to use other people's love against them while you yourself go on rants about how important love is to you. All's fair, my baton. You suck, Kingpin. Kingpin's love is interesting to me as he talks about how he and Vanessa met. Vanessa was 15 while Kingpin was merely a leader of a band of petty thieves, so I don't know Kingpin's age, but he might have been older or the same age. You tell me, how old is Kingpin supposed to be? I don't know, 40? Vanessa was lost, afraid, amnesiac. So she was, trafficked? A runaway? It's not like she had no power in the situation, at least to me, so how much did she really love Kingpin? And how much of her love is purely imagined by Kingpin? She might have adapted, but that's not really love, that's more survival. I think this is confirmed by the paneling here. Vanessa is separated into her own panel with the narration saying, I saw escape, with no color box to identify the narrator. I think it's Vanessa's story, relegated to a small corner while Kingpin towers over the most of the space. Kingpin's narration is separated by this divide, which I interpret as changing into Vanessa's narration, but I think it also shows his disconnect. He doesn't hear her, he doesn't see her, he only sees an object of every lonely dream he's ever had. Vanessa starts recovering with the doctor's help. She shows too much affection to the doctor for Kingpin's liking. He knows that Vanessa jumped at his voice. Was there fear in her eyes before I spoke? My guy, yes, you basically kidnapped her when she was 15. You degenerate lowlife. Why doesn't this prisoner like me? I do not understand. Idiot. Could also be she's just jump scared by Kingpin's voice coming on out of nowhere, and Kingpin's just taking it as more than it is, due to his jealousy. During their early appearances, Vanessa always wanted Kingpin to quit the criminal life so they can go off to live a normal life together, so she kinda historically wants out of this business, so again, how much did she ever wanna be here? It is worth questioning how much affection Vanessa shows to the doctor. This book leans heavily into surreal art. It's not real per se. Kingpin isn't really this massive, and yet he's portrayed as a massive closet with tiny T-Rex arms because that gets the feeling across. He dominates all the space, leaving Vanessa small and weak. He got small arms because it's absolutely hilarious looking. Kingpin is the most powerful man in New York, but he can't have Vanessa. He can't make her happy. Despite all his power, he can't have what he desires. The most memorable character of the story is the second lead character, the start of a creep show, Victor. He works for Kingpin. He kidnaps the doctor's wife and he's meant to guard her. While Victor watches over the doctor's wife, he grows possessive over her. He goes on these long rambles about how he doesn't touch her like that. Nothing like that. She's safe with me. Like, here's this scene. He sits by her bed and just stares at her. Stares and thinks about how perfect she is. Cheryl is right here. And she's a sleeping beauty. Beauty is the right word. Better than looker. That's too cheap. She's like Helen of Troy or Kate Jackson. She's perfect. Nobody will find her here. She's an angel, the kind you'd worship and never touch, never make dirty. Nothing like that. Nothing like that. It's nice. Just sitting and looking at her. I just look at her face. Nothing like that. She is safe with me. If you ever wanted to read about a man fantasizing about being a knight, saving a queen from bandits, this is the book for you. Not even joking, you get to read Victor's daydreams about being a literal knight in shining armor. Victor is the most disturbing character of the series so far. Oh my gosh, he's comfortable to read. Also, he's racist. I'm not quite sure why Miller added that detail, but that's in there. Victor has the standout art of the story where he is easily the most memorable part. He's somebody who is mentally not well, so he needs to be on meds. And in this story, he actually ends up going off the meds, so you slowly watch him descend into madness. This is where the surreal, dreamlike art really takes over, where his descent into madness is shown by this broken mind of his face will become shattered, or he will have like 3 faces just all going nuts as he's slowly just losing control of himself. It's really creepy and weird and very uncomfortable. Victor is drawn ape-like. He is very outwardly extremely dangerous looking. I'm not gonna spoil his part of the story just in case you haven't read this story, but this genuinely might be the most disturbing character in Daredevil so far I've come across. It's quite horrifying. Then we get a third point of view, a small one, with the doctor. Here's him meeting Vanessa. She sleeps like a child, an innocent girl. And when she wakes and sees me, I can only think of Cheryl. She's much like Cheryl was, before Cheryl became so capable. Bro, what do you mean by that? No, seriously, how am I supposed to interpret that? You compare her to a literal child to say she's just like your wife used to be before she became capable. That reads like the doctor either likes them young or likes them at least vulnerable enough to have no agency of their own. I haven't mentioned it before, but Cheryl, the doctor's wife, is blind. I seriously am not entirely sure how I'm supposed to read the doctor. Like, I generally am 2 ways about it. This could just be him feeling bad because he knows he's gonna use Vanessa against Kingpin, and that's all that there is to it. It's just happy coincidence, but I don't know, bringing up a comparison to a child and bringing up the wife and saying she wasn't as capable before just comes across really weird. If it's unintentional, it's I think a poor choice of words at least. Or maybe Cheryl was in a coma like Vanessa, and he worked on her and ended up romancing his patient, which is still predatory, and that experience might be even the reason why Kingpin chose him for this. I don't know, I might just be reading too much into the doctor. I recognize that I'm very likely overreading the doctor thing, but this whole thing just rubs me the wrong way. It's just like one of those things where just like, unlike Kingpin, who is massive and towering and menacing, or Victor, who is ape-like and obviously very dangerous, the doctor is actually kind of gentle looking. Like, he doesn't look dangerous, and I think there could be a theme here about him maybe being a predatory like the other ones too. Maybe he took advantage of a vulnerable patient, and his darkness is just meant to be hidden behind this kind of appearance. Don't know which way I'm supposed to read it. It's just, I don't know, something about the guy rubs me the wrong way, and it could just be me being paranoid. Something about him just, this whole just scene kind of makes him come across weird to me, and it could just be purely accidental. Daredevil is our final point of view. A decent person, what a breath of fresh air. But of course, we're exploring his flaws. The theme in the book is men's treatment of women. The way men take advantage of women, how they're used as pawns, and how possessive love turns to evil. Daredevil saves Cheryl from Victor, and we get a page-long description of how Cheryl's body feels against his, how her fingers scrubs his back. Dudes parkouring across rooftops, and he somehow finds the mental power to focus on her breath. Like, seriously, dude. How are you thinking about her sweat right now? Control yourself. You know this panel I keep spamming? That ain't lemonade he's drinking. The ride is ours, and she welcomes it. Bro, you're doing backflips. She's barely conscious. I don't think she's happy about this. Daredevil's got a bit of a knight in shining armor fantasy going on, but with a skin-tight spandex thing. Even though it's not quite as bad as the other men's, Daredevil's fantasy still revolve around saving her. He desires Cheryl, like the other men do. He's not that different. He still has desires. The difference is he controls himself. He doesn't become jealous over her husband. He doesn't hate her for not wanting him. It's not as much about feeling bad thoughts, but more about controlling them that separates these characters. He does treat Cheryl like a prisoner, like an object to be used in his war against Kingpin, and that overall ends up leading to tragedy. Love and War is very much about what its title suggests, what men will do in the name of love, and what they're willing to do to win their wars. And even more specifically, it's about how men use women as objects, as prizes to be won, or as victims to use to win. All's fair, right? I will be the first to admit, I struggle a little bit with this one. The art is gorgeous with this unnerving, surreal look that looks painted. It reminds me of Arkham Asylum, a serious house on serious Earth, which I'm guessing is directly inspired by Sienkiewicz. I read it months ago. It has stuck with me this entire time. It specifically feels kind of haunting. I will be minding my own business and then the image of this creepy psycho will come to my mind like, boo! It's a striking looking book and it is its best date. I revisited Love and War for this video and I found myself liking the book a lot more on a second read through. It's a book you vibe with. It is about the emotions each scene, each character, and each image invokes more than about like some grandiose themes or smarter, deeper layers. It's a feeling, and I'd imagine it's not for everyone. I'd imagine if it's for you, then you will probably really love this one. For me, I'm not quite settled in on yet, and I have already changed my mind on it, so I will give it a revisit later to see how I feel about it. I will say this story has one of my absolute favorite final panels of all time, so that's pretty cool. After Love and War, but the same year, Miller and Sienkiewicz released Elektra, Assassin. This one's probably the most challenging out of all these books, and because of the way it's like this, it definitely is the most intriguing out of all the graphic novels. Assassin is one of those cases where it's more about the journey. You could fully watch a spoiler breakdown going over the book, and I'd argue you could still get the experience like a new reader. It might even be honestly better, depending on how much you like figuring out what you're reading. I might as well get this out of the way. The standout feature of this book is the art. Sienkiewicz once again decided to go with a more psychedelic approach. The book changes character designs on a whim, a lot of characters aren't realistic to say the least, and in general, this stuff is really over-exaggerated, and you kind of have to approach Assassin like a cartoon, I found. Same way you just accept Bane being ridiculously massive, or you just roll with characters making expressive faces, or you just accept characters taking way too much punishments, just as a thing that happened. Freeze frames and all of this. This is the comic book version of that type of storytelling, and you kind of have to roll with it. Assassin revolves around Elektra, before Miller's Daredevil run. Chapter 1 is from the perspective of Elektra, stuck in this madhouse, trying to piece together her life. We could begin with Elektra describing her pregnant mother's assassination. Elektra is saved out of her dying mother. A violent beginning. Eventually, Elektra's father dies, and she leaves. Elektra joins the Hand, and she is confronted by this giant monster called the Beast, and she's made to drink his milk. There is some extremely suggestive imagery going on that covers these topics, and sometimes I find myself being fine with it, and at other times it feels weird. The art is more about the feeling these characters invoke than what is literally happening. This is very important as we go on. It's surreal because it's more based in the mood and the ideas the art invokes. I think the confusing art is meant to reflect her mental state. It is confusing to her too. Eventually, Elektra leaves Hand as well, and she becomes an assassin for hire. She tries to assassinate a target, but she's attacked by the Beast. She's captured and sent to a madhouse where she's taken advantage of and treated awful. This is where the issue truly has been taking place the entire time, as she has been trying to put her mind back together. We've been watching her memories unfolding, and now Elektra remembers who she is and how she got here. With her mind back together, she's able to escape and begin her hunt for the Beast. Chapter 2 follows Elektra trying to locate her target by using some sort of memory extraction device. I'm not missing some sort of metaphor here. She's basically brain dancing, which feels really odd when contrasted with the real horrors of issue 1. Chapter 2 feels like it wants to be outrageous with this sci-fi hat driving the story. She's stalking her victim, hearing his thoughts. Both characters kind of blend together, only having their narration boxes separated by colors, which is a common thing in this story. All the narration box and colors indicate who is talking at any given time. The sci-fi is such an odd choice. It's not like this type of stuff is out of line for Marvel, but it is unusual for Miller's Daredevil, possibly Daredevil in general. I don't know what to really make of it. It's weird to see assassin characters hang out with flying little spacers, and it feels like Frank Miller and Bill Sienkiewicz are almost making fun of the premise. Like, I don't know how to describe it. Normally you'd set the mood with the start of the story. It's a story about a ninja, so you'd expect something more appropriate, like, I don't know, in incenses or something, shots of bamboo and paper. Instead we get a giant metal memory reading device, and it's like the whatever is the opposite of immersion. Chapters 2, 3, and 4 bring into focus this dude, Garrett. He has some sort of psychic link to Elektra, and we follow their weird romance. Elektra now has an ability to not just read minds, but she can also possess other people's minds and shapeshift. She tries to possess a 15-year-old Sandy so she can get close to her target, but Elektra is the one who ends up being possessed by the 15-year-old, and Garrett has to rescue her. Them. It hurts to think about. Early on, I figured all of this is metaphorical. She's not shapeshifting, she's just using disguises, and she's not really possessing people's minds, she just pretends to be them. But later, she's able to switch other people's minds between bodies, and she literally is able to alter another character's appearance in order to get away, and is even acknowledged as one of her powers by other characters, so it seems to be the real deal. Like, seriously, how am I supposed to read any of this? Can she literally shapeshift? If not, what happens with Chastity? Does she really have these Professor X powers? If not, what is the ending then? Like, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm sorry. Let's continue. The Beast attacks Garrett, so that thing is also apparently real. The two team up to stop the Beast, who is trying to get the presidential-elect Ken Wind elected as president, whom will then start a nuclear war, ending the world because it was the 80s. Of course, this story ends up in nuclear Armageddon. In the end, Elektra saves the day by using her mind power, swapping Ken Wind and Garrett's minds, so Garrett takes over Ken Wind's body and becomes the president. When you think about it, this is clearly the only way this story about a ninja assassin could have ended. Okay, let's open all of that up a little bit more. She barely speaks, even along with Garrett. It's mostly just Garrett lusting or hating her, almost never her speaking back. There are a few moments where she shows her desire for something else. She remembers her romance with Matt, but she merely shuts that down and stops those thoughts. Elektra is lost in dreams of a loving husband. You could read that as her desire to live a normal life with a man who loves her unconditionally, being lost in wanting something better. She was born in blood, she didn't really choose this life. It's always been there for her, whether she wanted it or not. And that is what ultimately ruins her assassination attempt. It slows her down. But for Elektra, the men in her life are not good people. The dream husband ends up being just a delusion. She kills the thought of Sally, cementing herself as the assassin. At least that's what I'm getting out of all of this. Plot has her on some sort of drug that regresses her brain into a more animal-like state where she thinks less, but her senses are enhanced. She's stronger and faster due to acting on instinct. This seems to come from the beast's mother's milk. When Elektra first gets the milk, we get this really weird sequence of events, which is a good showcase of what kind of storytelling this story has. We start with Elektra. She's shackled in literal chains. She's hit with the milk. 3-hand assassins are now going to execute her. And this is some sort of test to see if she's enough of a killer to survive. This is followed by her thinking about herself as a 6-year-old, and there's a picture of a kitten. I think this kitten is meant to be a representation of young Elektra, small and weak. Then we get her shackles breaking, which is her breaking out of her literal chains and also her metaphorical chains. She's breaking out of her emotions and doubts and all those thoughts that slow down her killer instinct. We finish with 2 panels of a larger cat. A panther, I think, killing wolves. This is her metaphorically transforming from a weak kitten into a panther capable of killing the hand members who were coming for her. She's transformed into a worthy assassin, and it's all shown through these metaphorical images. This Black Panther is, I believe, the Black Globe she goes on and on about on the next page. The Black Globe is killer instinct taking over. That or some sort of memories, probably bad ones, dramatic ones, violent ones. It's a little difficult for me, I think I'm running into a bit of a language barrier with the Black Clothes specifically. It doesn't fully register in my mind some of the parts. They talk about Black Clothes, but I don't really understand what is being said. It's a bit embarrassing, but it is what it is, I can't help with that. I'm struggling with the Beast a little bit. It exists literally in Marvel, but it's treated as more like a metaphor, but I'm a little lost on exactly what they're going for with that one. The Beast is introduced alongside a picture of this dude, Elektra's father. There's literal lines drawn between the Beast, the father, and Elektra. So there's a clear connection there, but I'm a little loose on it. Does the Beast represent trauma, violence, and being consumed by this awful life? Maybe it represents masculinity. It is a bull, which is a very masculine creature. And there is an element of assault to it with the milk thing, and Elektra ultimately defeats the beast in the end by penetrating it with a spear, almost reversing the roles. And this whole story is ultimately very much tied up to masculinity. Garrett's character is about masculinity. Elektra is a victim of masculinity. Masculinity is a part of it, so it could represent some sort of manhood thing, which would explain the milk thing very specifically, why they would use such imagery. That is masculinity corrupting these people. And so, that's the thing. That could be some sort of version of that too. Also, I don't know where to put this, but there's this imagery of the hand wearing white pointy robes. That's an inspired choice, and I'm not quite sure why that imagery is here. What am I supposed to ignore it? Because that feels too careless from a masterful artist like Sienkiewicz, but if it's intentional, why? I don't get it. Alone, I'd ignore it, but there was also the raised remarks from Victory in Love and War, so what's going on, man? What are we doing here? My best guess is that Miller and Sienkiewicz are kind of mocking these kinds of people in real life, basically calling them stupid and insecure in their masculinity. That's my best guess. The second lead is Garrett. Garrett is a character who embodies old school ideas of a male hero. He's a tough god, he drinks, he breaks the rules to get the job done, he treats women as something to conquer. The book seems very critical of this, as it portrays characters as kind of stupid and unlikable, and even downright disgustingly hateable. He's kind of a terrible human being. He's an alcoholic and violent and all around just horrible. Garrett looks puffed up. I look at that as showing he's trying to appear the biggest, more like a real man. The shirt is too big because he's small on the inside. Either he's posturing or it's just 80s shoulder pads, I don't know. You tell me. It is interestingly reminiscent of Kingpin's design, so I do wonder if there's meant to be a similar design element to that. I like this panel of Fury's gun dwarving Garrett. His insecurity makes him just be the worst, and I'll be honest, I hate his thoughts a lot. I don't think the comic is necessarily bad for it, but I just don't find him compelling. I hate who he is as a person, so every moment with him is a crime against me, and I find his relationship to be awful, but that's certainly probably the point here. The way I look at it is that Elektra early on describes Garrett as an ugly man, and I don't think she's attracted to him. They don't sleep together, although Garrett really wants to. I think he's just getting played. Elektra appears nude around Garrett and kisses him and gives him almost a false hope, so he'd do what she needs him to do. Maybe it's not mind control, and Garrett just claims it because he can't face his own inadequacies, but then we get Elektra switching people's minds around, so who knows? Maybe sometimes Elektra uses mind powers, but not with Garrett. Garrett is just being manipulated the old-fashioned way. Elektra doesn't talk much in this comic. She's wordy in the first chapter, but after that she kind of stops, and most dialogue or narration is by everyone else, and her thoughts are just about the mission. They are very focused, so her actual emotions are much more obscure. Despite all the super dark ideas, the book really isn't that dark, honestly. The first chapter or two are super dark, very much so, but as the story goes on, it gets more and more, wacky and just insane. Car chases to massive underwater fights and giant guns and robo monsters. It gets insane to the point it's impossible to take seriously. Look at this, a nun running around with a gun. Totally, the book turns to satire, and it's even borderline funny, and I don't know how I feel about it. Once again, I don't really feel like I fully get it, seriously. I had to reread chapter 3 3 times just to understand the basic plot. I always feel like I'm missing something important with this book. I like the beginning when it's the hardest to read. This tone is fine. I like the parts where Elektra is fighting a robo-cyborg. This tone is fine. Mashing them together makes it really weird. It's not a natural transition, I found. Elektra is exploited by men, her handlers, Garrett. It's a constant. She's treated as an object, a thing to be desired, stripped from all humanity. We spend such a large chunk of the book in Garrett's mind. All that time, Elektra is an enigma because he doesn't understand her at all, and he doesn't really care to understand her. We watch her from a man's point of view and explore his misogyny. He's conflicted between desiring Elektra and hating her for it. And that very weird relationship between hatred and lust that is captured very well with this panel, how Garrett feels about her. It's really uncomfortable, and Garrett is so hateable. But against all odds, he gets rewarded for his awfulness by making him the president in the end, and it's framed as almost a good thing, I feel like, which I think is self-aware, but I don't really know about the execution. These are serious things, and it's almost treated as comical. Garrett gropes Chastity, which is followed by Chastity punching his lights out. And it is a funny panel that could fit into old cartoons, but in the context, it's also, man, it's really hard to laugh at. Like, it's just kind of confusing. I think the book's biggest takeaway is that masculinity can turn into something very, very bad. These men mistreat women and they disregard human life. They are the worst, and they can be regular grunts working for the man, or they can be running the world. Like, the first half of the story is focused on Elektra and this misogyny theme, but as it goes on, it kind of transforms into this story of politics. The book is super political. Elektra's taking out corrupt politicians throughout all of it, and the story escalates into dealing with American presidential elections, and we get many scenes showing the president's not such a great light. There's this previous president who's pretty small and hot-tempered, always threatening with nuclear war. His opponent is Ken Wind, who is this paper cutout thing, pretty as a Ken doll, and his words are win. The message seems to be cynical. All three are horrible people. Garrett's just spent the whole book showing how much he hates women. Ken literally wants to destroy the world, and their little man will destroy the world out of stupidity, showing all the presidents sucking. I don't know, I'm not American enough for some of this stuff, but it is quite cynical thoughts on politicians and who runs the show. Reading everything here, I feel like Elektra Assassin is more about the emotion it wakes in you. I spent a lot of time trying to figure out why. Why is anything the way it is? And I honestly don't think the book has anything that clever to say. It's not surface level, but it's not gonna really give you anything super deep either, I felt like. It tells you politicians are liars, men are horrible to women, drama turns you into a sexy assassin. It's all something we've seen before. Like, it's well-written story, I believe, but it's like this kind of a thing where this isn't Miller's greatest work, but Sienkiewicz is doing all-time greatest art. You know, looking deeper into it, I feel like the story just kind of leaves me a little disappointed. For me, Assassin is really just about appreciating the art and try to understand why the artful decisions were made. It's fun to decipher, but I don't think it's gonna blow your mind in actual depth, although this did come out in 86. Comics had already done Dark Knight Returns, I believe, by this point, or it was coming out about the same time. Swamp Thing, Daredevil, Watchmen was about to release, so it's not a new ground story-wise, but art-wise, I think it was on the newer side. My biggest problem with Elektra Assassin is just with Elektra. I think Garrett takes up too much time, and by the end, all the characters and plots come together, and I feel like it all drowns out Elektra. She should be the heart of all this, and her name is in the title, and yet I don't think she ends up being the heart it needs. And I think the character study I was set up for is flawed and replaced by political satire, which, while kind of fascinating, it quite isn't as interesting, and considering the topic of men harming women, I feel like it can't be justified by the narrative. It loses sight of what matters here. Elektra is assaulted and used, but I don't feel like that story is ever fully resolved in a satisfactory way. That's where it really falls apart. It's just a jungled mess of different ideas of being thrown at you at a really almost impressive speed. The most noteworthy thing about the book is the art, and it's a standout feature, and it's, dare I say, a masterpiece of visual storytelling. My difficulty to comprehend a lot of it has more to do with my worryingly low IQ than any actual flaws in the storytelling. I have gone from pure confusion into loving the art. I would love to hear everyone's opinions on this one. I imagine this is someone's favorite comic as well, just like Love and War. Sienkiewicz has a very strong personality to his works. So I imagine there's some split opinions. I think I like this one. It's a bit hard to tell. I had to reread chapters just to understand the basic plot, and, you know, rereading, this clearly wants you to take your time, peeling those layers back. It challenges you. It's daring you to do that. You're getting your money's worth in reading time, that's for sure. I did enjoy my experience, I think, but I think due to Assassin's nature, I'll need more time to decide my thoughts, so consider my thoughts after like 3 reads my first impression. Elektra Assassin is certainly bold. It's straight up mad, and it's certainly unique, but is it actually good? I mean, I had fun, and I want to revisit it, so saying no would be dishonest. I like it, and it's one I'd love to have physically one day. After those 2 graphic novels, Miller left Daredevil once again, but he returned 4 years later with another graphic novel, Elektra Lives Again. Elektra Lives Again is quite short, and I think it's also the simplest out of all these. Matt Murdock is seeing nightmares about Elektra, her facing damnation for all her sins. Every night, he sees her victims chase her down and take their violent revenge. This story really doesn't have much plot to it. It's all about Matt grieving his lost love, one that he can't really fully recover from. It's a melancholy story. The imagery is beautiful. I generally don't know what to say about this one. Elektra lives again is to be felt. Plot is the Hank comes back to finish Matt off so they can resurrect Elektra. Matt's sad and stops them. Like, I'm not sure if this story really even happened. It's not canon, I believe, but even if it was, it feels like a dream. You're reading a haunting. It even ends with an image of a burning church or something, and the narration giving Matt permission to move on. Like, I don't know if I just got used to Sinkovich's insanity, but I find Elektra Lives Again to be almost more dreamlike than the two previous books, which is pretty wild to say. Love and War feel like a proper story underneath everything. Assassin has clear goals, and towards the end, it even becomes a proper narrative. Elektra Lives Again? It just feels like a dream. It's aimless and short. Maybe I'm being crazy and this is just another statement I'm gonna be embarrassed about later. A good chunk of the comic are Matt's actual dreams, so, maybe that's the thing that's throwing me off. I was left feeling like the whole thing might just be a dream or a metaphor for Matt's internal struggles instead of a literal adventure that actually happens in the real world. The book has beautiful imagery. There's a fight scene between Elektra and these two nude people. It's wacky, but it's imaginative. There's this panel, Ghost in the Shell, but with extra boxes. Elektra leaping against a hail of arrows, an army of Matts walking down the stairs. Matt visits Bullseye's corpse, and we get this page calling back to the ending of Roulette. The panels get wacky. It's a gorgeous book, and part of what shines here is the coloring. I don't know what you call this coloring technique. Is it just paint they're using? I don't know, but it looks good. I love the way the colors work. The red Elektra against the white background, or the colors of the city. Mills environments get super detailed here. Actually, that's something that is worth noting. The churches are nuts. I don't really find myself having much to say about this book. It's just gorgeous, and that's kind of mainly what it is. It's a vibe. I do wonder how much Miller and his relationship with Daredevil is in this comic. It's a story about letting go of your love. Considering this is his second to last Daredevil work, I wonder if it's him to a degree letting go of the book he helped revolutionize. That's based on really nothing. Just a thought I had reading this. Is Elektra Lives Again worth a read? Yeah, but I wouldn't particularly care to revisit, I feel like, but I'm glad I read it. It's one you appreciate for the art. It's a bit of a theme with all these three books. You can spoil all three books, but I don't think that matters to the experience at all. If anything, with Sinkovich, spoilers might actually make it easier to grasp what you're looking at. I love all three, but reading them does leave me wanting for something a bit more concrete. After three surreal books that exist almost entirely for the art, I want to read something with a more traditional plot. Characters I can understand easily. I want a proper Daredevil classic. We arrive to what I believe is Miller's final Daredevil work in 1993. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong again. The Man Without Fear, a 5-issue miniseries. Miller caps off his time on Daredevil with Daredevil's origin story. This mini is illustrated by John Romita Jr. during what might just be his prime. If I want to be pretentious, and I do, I think I look at Born Again as the end for Miller's Matt Murdock. Love and War was the end for Kingpin, and Elektra Lives Again was a goodbye to the entire book, emotionally. Especially the character of Elektra, since she's clearly Miller's favorite child. The Man Without Fear is the victory lap, taking a look at the beginning and revisiting the best parts, reminiscing about the good times. Pop out and show everyone, Miller never lost it. The Man Without Fear does have some lore inconsistencies with the mainline book if you read other Daredevil stuff, so I don't think it's straight up canon, so you kind of approach it with a little bit of critical thought. It's more like an adaptation of Daredevil's early career. The first issue covers Matt's childhood from getting into fights with other kids. He's a boy of action, just like his father. Matt's father hasn't done well in life. He hates his life and not how he turned out. And he only really wants at this point for Matt to do better. One day Matt comes home after getting into a fight. Matt's dad slaps Matt. Matt's dad loves Matt more than anything. That is unquestionable. It's a weirdly sympathetic slapping of a child, I'm gonna be honest. He doesn't think, he acts. And this is him acting out of fear. And this is where his obsessive belief in rules is all based in. He begins to study the law. All men can be bad. Dad can be bad. Rules are what keep people in line. Dad cannot hurt Matt as long as there are rules. Laws. Jesus Christ, that might be the saddest take on a superhero's psyche. We see Matt's accident that blinds him and his training with Stick Matt stays inside in order to study and stay out of fights, so the other kids start to bully him. They call him Daredevil, and because he refuses to fight so much, some kids actually end up attacking him, and Matt refuses to fight back. Issue 1 ends with the event that will define Matt Murdock for the rest of his life. Matt's father defies a mobster, so Matt's father is ambushed, beaten, and finally shot. Some of these panels are taken straight from original run, and I say the issue 1 is fairly accurate, at least to how I remember these issues. Like, I don't really remember if Matt's father was working for the mob in the main line, but this is relatively how things went down. It's issue 2 that starts to deviate, as here Matt takes revenge as a teenager before becoming Daredevil. Originally, Daredevil's revenge quest happens in literally the issue 1 of the main comic, where he already has his yellow costume and he's already Daredevil. Killer makes the story much darker. Matt is angry and his revenge is violent. He's a kid trying to hurt the evil men back. I don't judge him, but in the original, it's a lot more righteous. There's a more 60s superhero feel with even humor splashed in, while this, it's all gritty vigilante, angry, if you know what I mean. In the original, Matt finds absolution, and it's honestly quite well adjusted as a person overall. He finds his peace and turns to helping others as Daredevil, while here, there is no peace for Matt. He's tormented and angry, and even after getting the guy. There's a new scene where Matt accidentally knocks a woman out a window during a fight, presumably killing her. He doesn't even check, he just panics and runs away. And this moment follows him everywhere. He stops his vigilante nonsense out of fear of hurting innocent people again. He thinks about this moment throughout the rest of the comic. It haunts him until he meets Elektra, under completely different circumstances than he does in the main line. Elektra's an adrenaline junkie. They go around parkouring together. That's how they meet. Matt's just taking a run and comes across Elektra. She likes getting into fights and she loves living recklessly. Matt's a reckless man. Eventually things go wrong with Elektra. Her father dies just like normal, presumably, and then she leaves. And Matt seems to blame this emotional pain on his recklessness once more. Matt desperately wants to live dangerously. He seeks out action almost compulsively. Whether it's fighting others or parkouring across rooftops, he craves action, but his childish need for rules stops him. If he follows the rules, no one gets hurt, because rules keep men good and make things go well. It all eventually breaks down, and we get probably 2 issues of my favorite John Romita Jr. art of all time. This entire series is what I'd consider Romita's absolute peak. The art has its own identity with strong creative choices that work absolutely flawlessly. It's accompanied by a story worthy of the art, and the ink support his style perfectly. It's a magnificent piece of art, one that I personally consider to be a masterpiece from a team of all-time greats. It has creative paneling, and after reading so much old school comics, this feels like such a breath of fresh air for me. I love the flow of these scenes. There are so many panels that I remember, even years later. The Man Without Fear was actually one of the first, if not the first, Daredevil book I read years ago, and still to this day, I can remember so many pages from it. I remember Elektra's fight in the alley. I remember Matt's father in the ring, like I was Matt himself, adoring how badass and kind of sad the whole situation is. And I remember Stick being just an all-around jerk. But most of all, I remember the finale, starting with Kingpin's introduction, the old-school mafia boss sitting at his table. 2 strong, 2 hairy for Kingpin hands come out of the darkness to snap his neck. Wilson Fisk takes the rose and becomes the Kingpin in just 2 pages. This might just probably be my single favorite image of Kingpin, a perfect display of his power. And we transition to the beginning of Daredevil and Kingpin's rivalry as Kingpin kidnaps a young girl. Matt ain't cool with that, but my god does he look the absolute coolest when he finds out. I mean, look at this. It's so good. He gears up in his black ninja costume and goes to work. And we get possibly my favorite Daredevil action scene of all time. Every panel is so perfect. I don't know what to say. It's not as thought-provoking as Sienkiewicz's art necessarily, but it is a different kind of mastery. One that's far more accessible and one that I adore just so much. My favorite panels are either the Kingpin one or this one of Matt jumping the bad guys. How do you not get hyped seeing that image? Like, Daredevil whooping everyone so hard, even Kingpin admits he is afraid of Daredevil. And you know what? The best part isn't even the action. It's perfect, don't get me wrong, but every time I read this, I honestly get a little choked up. I can feel tears coming up in many parts of the story. I push those tears down because I'm masculine like that, but they are there every time. It's a heart-rending story about a boy finding an outlet for his anger. Matt Murdock is entrapped in his need for rules, while also he has that innate need to do something. He takes his greatest flaw and he tries to find a way to make it a force for good. He takes the name bullies called him, the name that once hurt him so bad, and tries to make it an inspiration for the world, an inspiration for himself. Daredevil. Ultimately, with some of the very best art of all time combined with incredible writing, I'd consider The Man Without Fear to be one of the greatest comic books of all time. To the point I might consider it on some days on par with Born Again. Even better if you catch me on a good mood. I love this book. I adore it. And granted, a lot of that has to do with Romita. This genuinely might be my favorite drawn book I've ever read. I love it. Daredevil is a contradiction of good. A flawed man trying his best. A violent man trying to keep the peace. A vigilante trying to uphold the law. I think Miller has done an exceptional job of showcasing that inherently contradictory nature of Daredevil, and he really is why I love the character so much. I think Miller does an excellent job of showcasing that throughout all these graphic novels. If Man Without Fear is to be his last one, I think he goes out on a high note. With The Man Without Fear, I believe I have now read all of Frank Miller's Daredevil works. There was a what if story, what if Elektra had lived, written by Frank Miller that I did not cover, but I did read it. It was okay. I did bring up another story in that issue in my Steve Ditko video because there was a story about a secret cat people society drawn by Steve Ditko, so I don't know, that was pretty cool. Overall, I love Miller's Daredevil. It's cool, it's emotional, it's funnier than you'd expect, it's hard-hitting, it feels like a complete work. Miller offers a satisfying beginning with an angry child seeking justice, peace, good things in the world. Middle with some crazy ninjas, and he offers closure with Born Again, giving him the peace he sought. Miller's time on Daredevil is easily one of the greatest comic book runs of all time, and I love reading it all the way through, every bit of it. Even after so many decades, Frank Miller's Daredevil really is that good.